Welcome to Geopolitics Universe. In today's video I will be discussing and explaining China, Russia and Saudi Arabia's plan to crush the US economy. But first, I would just like to welcome you to Geopolitics Universe. This is a channel where we share the latest news, rumors, and insights into all things on geopolitics. You'll be able to find news surrounding all things to do with geopolitics. I would really appreciate it if you could please like and subscribe. Also, I just wanted to announce, as we are a new channel which is growing by the day, we will be launching a giveaway for a $50 Amazon gift card. All you have to do to enter is like and subscribe. The giveaway winner will be announced in due course. Now let's carry on with the video. As political and economic headwinds show little signs of abating, the world's security is unlikely to stabilize in the mid-term. The Ukrainian crisis, a testimony to the ongoing erosion of the global order, could drag into winter as the prospects for peace talks have not yet crystallized. Kyiv's Western allies are seemingly doing little to encourage Ukraine to seek a more immediate resolution to the conflict. Conversely, Washington is set to arm Ukraine for winter fighting with another $275 million in weapons and equipment. It will add to the $18.5 billion already pledged by the Biden administration. Russia has just announced its pullback from a grain deal with Ukraine, citing an alleged Ukrainian drone attack against Russia's ships. The suspension of the deal, which has been the only evidence of some flaccid political activity, signifies that even humanitarian issues are no longer up for discussion. To the relief of those who have been ratcheting up at nuclear autumn scenario, President Vladimir Putin dismissed speculation that Russia intended to use nuclear weapons in Ukraine while speaking at a meeting of the Moscow-based think tank Valdai Discussion Club on October 27. At the same time, Putin described the conflict as an attempt by the West to secure its global domination by playing a dangerous, bloody, and dirty geopolitical game. Markedly, President Xi Jinping painted a similar picture of the international landscape in his political report to the 20th Party Congress, gloomily describing it as being rife with high winds, choppy waters and even dangerous storms. During his Valdai speech, Putin referred repeatedly to China and called Xi my friend. He revealed expectations for bilateral trade to soon reach $200 billion and suggested that practices used to drive China's development could be reproduced in Russia. Besides Xi, the Russian president also praised the leaders of India and Saudi Arabia for guiding their countries' foreign policies according to national interest. Such non-coincidental references signify that Russia sees these countries and leaders as reliable partners in times of global insecurity and confrontation. This is logical reasoning, since China and India refused to endorse a Washington-sponsored price cap, in the range of $40 - 60 per barrel, on Russian oil exports. Saudi Arabia also sided with Russia last month to slash oil production among OPEC members, which left American officials and President Joe Biden, in the words of the New York Times, fuming that they were duped. Overall, Saudi Arabia has begun to loom larger on Russian and Chinese geopolitical radars as a welcome partner in the opposition to a US-led international order. Since Riyadh's relations with Washington have long been unbalanced, it is now finding more in common with Moscow and Beijing. Recently, Saudi Arabian and Chinese officials pledged closer cooperation in the energy supply chain by establishing a regional hub for Chinese manufacturers in the kingdom. Earlier in September, during the Shanghai Cooperation Organization (SCO) summit in the Uzbek city of Samarkand, Saudi Arabia was made a dialogue partner to the group, paving the way for it to eventually become a full member. It was also at the summit that Putin met Xi. The Russian president praised the Russia-China foreign policy tandem, a catchphrase coined last year to describe their quasi-alliance. Notably, Putin stressed that both countries stand for the formation of a just, democratic and multipolar world order. Xi echoed these words, saying that China is willing to make efforts with Russia to inject stability and positive energy into a world. Most importantly, Xi said China was ready to work with and support Russia on issues concerning core interests, which could obviously be extrapolated to the regions crucial for maintaining territorial integrity, be it Donbass or Taiwan. In response, Putin thanked China for its balanced position on the Ukraine crisis. The Russia-China joint race against the Washington-led group of like-minded allies to orchestrate a new world order has become a defining feature of this century and the main reason for the rising threat of military confrontation. Both states are ready to reinforce their vision for a multipolar world not only rhetorically, but by exercising military resolution. Ahead of the Putin-Xi meeting in Samarkand, Russian and Chinese navies held joint patrols in the Pacific Ocean. China again reassured Russia of its firm support, following the conclusion of the Party Congress, with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi telling his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov in a phone call that Beijing would continue to endorse Moscow as a major power in the international arena. Both Putin's Valdai speech and Xi's recent party report contain similar narratives. Putin argued that following the collapse of the Soviet Union, the West felt as a winner and declared a unipolar world arrangement, in which only its will, culture and interests had the right to exist. Meanwhile, Xi, in an implied rebuke of US-led regional groupings, said that China opposes all forms of unilateralism in the forming of blocs and exclusive groups targeted against particular countries. With the US antagonizing Russia and China by grouping them together as acute threats, no one should expect any swift or peaceful stabilization of global security. Russia and China have made clear their great power roles as fierce proponents of a multipolar world order while rejecting one dominated by the US. But the latter will not relinquish global leadership that easily, so the geopolitical show must go on. In other news, apparently confirming the view of Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, MBS, that the US is now regarded as just another one of its partners in a new global order that would see Beijing and its allies share the leadership position with Washington. Saudi Arabia last week reiterated its commitment to China as its most reliable partner and supplier of crude oil, along with broader assurances of its ongoing support in several other areas. That MBS seemingly now sees the US as a partner just for its security considerations, with no meaningful quid pro quo on Saudi Arabia's part, whilst regarding China as its key partner economically and Russia as its key partner in energy matters, should not surprise the US. Back in March last year, it was made clear enough at the annual China Development Forum hosted in Beijing, when Aramco Chief Executive Officer, Amin Nasser said, "Ensuring the continuing security of China's energy needs remains our highest priority, not just for the next 5 years but for the next 50 and beyond." And yet, the US is surprised by the apparent finalization of the transition of Saudi Arabia away from Washington and towards China, which effectively marks the end of the 1945 core agreement between the US and Saudi Arabia that defined their relationship up until extremely recently. This transition has been seen most recently in the refusal of MBS to take a telephone call from President Joe Biden in which he was to ask for his help in bringing down economy crimping high energy prices, and then in the huge cut in collective OPEC oil production that has only added to energy-driven inflationary fears for global economies. Given the peremptory way in which the core 1945 agreement was ended by MBS, Washington is angry too, as was evidenced in the highly pointed comments from several senior US officials at the time of the OPEC cut, including from Biden himself, who said that there's going to be some consequences for what they've done, with Russia supporting oil prices by leading OPEC's 2 million barrel per day (BPD) collective output cut. I'm not going to get into what I'd consider and what I have in mind. But there will be consequences. Just before Biden's comments, John Kirby, the National Security Council spokesperson, echoed official doubts on the future of the US-Saudi security relationship, as he said that Biden believed that the US ought to review the bilateral relationship with Saudi Arabia and take a look to see if that relationship is where it needs to be and that it is serving our national security interests, in light of the recent decision by OPEC and Saudi Arabia's leadership of it. Apparently careless of these ramifications, Saudi Arabia last week stated that, in addition to continuing in its role as China's partner of choice in the oil market, the two countries would continue close communication and strengthen cooperation to address emerging risks and challenges, according to a joint communiqué from Saudi Energy Minister, Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman, and Beijing's National Energy Administrator, Zhang Jianhua. In the context of crude oil, according to Chinese customs data, Saudi Arabia delivered 1.76 million barrels of oil per day in shipments to China over the January to August period, marking an increase in its market share to 17.7% from 16.9% a year earlier. Additionally, last week saw the two countries pledge to continue discussions on developing joint integrated refining and petrochemical complexes and to cooperate on the use of nuclear energy. Although flagged by Saudi Arabia and China as being the peaceful use of nuclear energy, the news just before Christmas 2021 that U.S. intelligence agencies had found that Saudi Arabia is now manufacturing its own ballistic missiles with the help of China, and given China's long-running and extensive assistance to Iran's nuclear ambitions, as analyzed in full in my latest book on the global oil markets, ongoing U.S. fears about what Beijing's endgame might be in building out the nuclear capabilities of key states in the Middle East will not have been alleviated. This latest round of talks and agreements comes very shortly after the signing of a multi-pronged Memorandum of Understanding, MO, between the Saudi Arabian Oil Company, formerly the Saudi Arabian American Oil Company, Aramco, and the China Petroleum and Chemical Corporation, Sinopec, which can be regarded as a critical step in China's ongoing strategy to secure Saudi Arabia as a client state. As the president of Sinopec, Yu Baosai, himself put it, the signing of the MO introduces a new chapter of our partnership in the kingdom. The two companies will join hands in renewing the vitality and scoring new progress of the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, and Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030. Crucially for China's long-term plans in Saudi Arabia, it also covers opportunities for the construction of a huge manufacturing hub in King Salman Energy Park that will involve the ongoing, on-the-ground presence on Saudi Arabian soil of significant numbers of Chinese personnel. Not just those directly related to the oil, gas, petrochemicals, and other hydrocarbons activities, but also a small army of security personnel to ensure the safety of China's investments. At that point in early 2021, Aramco had a 25% stake in the 280,000 barrels of oil per day Fujian refinery in South China through a joint venture with Sinopec and the US's ExxonMobil, and had also earlier agreed, in 2018, to buy a 9% stake in China's 800,000 barrels of oil per day ZPC refinery from Rongsheng. Several other joint projects between China and Saudi Arabia that had been agreed in principle were delayed due to a combination of the ongoing effects of COVID-19, Aramco's crushing dividend repayment schedule, and concern from both countries, especially China, on how Washington might react to this clear threat to the US's own long-running interests in, and geopolitical relationship with, Saudi Arabia. Just prior to this, June saw Saudi Aramco's senior vice president downstream, Mohammed Y. Al-Qahtani, announce the creation of a one-stop shop, provided by his company in China's Shandong. The ongoing energy crisis, for example, is a direct result of fragile international transition plans which have arbitrarily ignored energy security and affordability for all, he said. The world needs clear-eyed thinking on such issues. That's why we highly admire China's 14th five-year plan for prioritizing energy security and stability, acknowledging its crucial role in economic development, he added. The megaproject in Shandong, which is home to around 26% of China's refining capacity and is a key destination for Saudi Aramco's crude oil exports, will broadly involve the flagship Saudi oil and gas giant creating stronger ties with the world's largest oil exporter. That would enhance China's energy security, especially as we work on increasing our production capacity to 13 million barrels per day, according to Al-Qahtani. Aside from the fact that Saudi Arabia still cannot produce anywhere near 13 million barrels per day of crude oil, closer cooperation between Aramco and China will mean Saudi Arabia investing heavily in the build-out of a large, integrated downstream business across the country in tandem with its Chinese partners given the transition of Saudi Arabia away from the US and towards China. And the senior Saudis do look at the issue in these terms, whatever they say publicly. There is also every reason to expect Riyadh to continue to back China's efforts to undermine the power of the US dollar in the global energy markets as well. Not only is Saudi Arabia now a prime mover in advancing the China-GCC Free Trade Agreement, FTA, a key aim of which is to forge a deeper strategic cooperation in a region where US dominance is showing signs of retreat, but also the kingdom is now a prime advocate for switching away from the hegemony of US dollars in the pricing of global oil and gas. Thanks so much for watching till the end. Until next time, see you later.